Everybody, how are you? Just wanted to kind of connect. I know the keynote speaker was running a little bit late, so we probably will have some folks join us, but we're going to dive right in. Okay, so my topic for this morning is about some tips and tools that we can use to manage our own professional development. Now, this presentation came out of my own efforts in trying to manage my own resources. So one of the things that I find challenging is that there's so much information coming at me that sometimes I'm missing things that are really important, things that I want to pay attention to, and I can't because there's so much clutter going on. So I'm going to share with you some of the things that I've learned over my course of my journey in trying to wrangle all of this data that's coming at us. So I'm happy to answer questions along the way. Molly's going to monitor the chat for me as well. So I will take some pauses and answer any questions along the way. But I'm also going to give some time at the end for you to ask questions or give us suggestions on things that you're doing that are working really well for you. Give us a chance to learn from each other as well. And I will show you some examples. So I am going to go through some slides, but fear not, I will at the end show you some actual examples of the things that I'm talking about too. So the first thing to really think about, and it's something that none of us can control for anyone else, is if you don't designate any time to your own professional development, there's no tool or technique that will help. Hopefully I'll give you some ideas on ways to be more organized and more efficient in terms of how you actually manage your professional development, but unless you designate some time for that, it really isn't going to matter. So I really look at the beginning of my day is something that I do. I take a little bit of time and get into the office before my meetings start, and I go through some of my different feeds and other things and try to keep on top of things right at the beginning of the day. Maybe that doesn't work for you. Maybe you're an end of the day kind of person or a once a week person. Whatever it is, kind of set a routine for yourself and make sure it's a regular habit. Once it becomes a habit, then I think you integrate it in to what you're doing and you're more conscious of keeping up with what you have going on. The other thing is a lot of the different tools and apps now are available on mobile devices, and I find that I use those a little bit more. I like the interfaces, and I find I use time that would normally be wasted in keeping up with things. So for example, if I'm somewhere for a meeting early and I have a few minutes to browse some articles that have come into my feeds, or waiting for an appointment that's running late or things like that. So however you fit it into your routine, it's important to do that, and that's my big disclaimer is I can't really help with that piece. That's something that you really need to generate a habit for. So part of putting this together is that we all really want to keep up with the latest trends in our disciplines, with what's going on in the news, scholarly publications, all those kinds of things. And we can really get caught up in kind of that overload and paralysis of sometimes we just shut it all off because there's just too much coming at us. So hopefully I'll have some suggestions for you. The first thing that I really started to do when I was trying to manage this was I was trying to use some social media aspects in following particular journals or voices in my profession that I wanted to follow. And I found with social media, you just missed a lot of things. And there was a lot of other junk that got in the way. So one thing, my first tip is I would really suggest that you seek out the listservs and blogs that you really want to follow. You can seek those ideas from your professional organizations. Many of them actually provide listservs and blogs. You can search, just go on the internet and search in your field and see who the voices are in your discipline and look to see who you might want to follow. Talk to your colleagues. go to conferences like the Free Learning Conference and pick up ideas and get suggestions for who you want to follow. And a lot of these listservs and blogs have the option where you can get aggregates. So instead of getting every single post that comes out, you can get them in a daily or a weekly aggregate, those kinds of things. And don't hesitate if you start following something and then it's really not what you wanted it to be, then stop following it. That's okay. But this is one of those efforts to actually go out and specifically choose what you want to allow into your own professional development. I find that some of the listservs that I follow give me great ideas in my profession, or they're inspirational and they give me new ideas and get me outside of the normal box that I'm in. So I would suggest seeking out listservs and blogs that you might want to follow. The next thing is, when you follow listservs and blogs, you might be in the situation that a lot of us are in where we have way too much email. So I would suggest filtering your email. That way you can still choose to participate in all of these blogs and listservs, but you don't have to feel like it takes over your inbox. So if you haven't ever done it before, I would encourage you to set up a filter. All you have to do, for example, in Gmail, is you just go to an email and click on it, and then you can go through some settings that will allow you to put that into a separate email folder. It's really important in the settings of filtering email that you say to skip the inbox. So you don't want your email to be in the inbox as well as in the separate folder. You want it to skip that altogether. And I find this is really, really helpful for me. And that way, in a busy day, in a busy work week, I'm not having to skip through everything that's in my inbox. I'm seeing the most important, but I can take time and I can browse through those folders later and check and see what's coming out for new ideas and in my listserv. So one of my tips with this is, when you filter things into a folder in your email, sometimes you can miss it and forget that it's there. So what I do is I name my folder with an AA at the beginning so that it puts it right at the top of my list. And that way I will see next to it that there are new messages in there that I haven't reviewed yet. Sometimes it's little tricks like this that just put our professional development in front of us and remind us to look at things that we're choosing to look at. So I would encourage you to look at email filters and decide how you're going to actually do that, whether you look at it once a day or set yourself up time once a week in order to review what's going in there. Next is, I am a librarian. So I would really encourage you, if you want to keep up with the scholarly information that's out there, is to set up library alerts. So when you are in the library databases at your institution, you can actually create searches and set up alerts where you'll get notified. For example, if there's a new volume of a journal that's come out, it'll notify you so you can actually go and browse what the titles are that are in the new volume. And that way you can set aside articles that you want to read for later. You can also set up a particular search criteria. So if you are doing research in an area and you want to search for articles or material that comes out with a particular search criteria, you can set that up. And when items come available with that search criteria, it will email that to you and let you know that that's out there. So again, this is just a way to choose what's coming to you and to really not miss the things that are important to you and you don't want to forget about. This is a tool that I think is really interesting if you haven't checked it out before. It's called Journal Talks. It's actually a table of contents. And this is a website, and I will show it to you at the end of the presentation, where they list the table of contents of over 31,000 journals. And it's a great single place to go and browse what the article titles are that are coming out in all these different journals. So you can actually search by a keyword or a phrase to look for what's out there. You can actually look at a publisher or a subject area. They do group it by subject. So for myself, I can go in and I can just look at the journal content that's designated as being in librarianship. So you could do that with your discipline as well. And actually see what the journals are that are out there. Maybe check some out that you haven't looked at before. Maybe you don't have access to those directly from your library, but you could actually request them from your library. You could ask for particular articles through interlibrary loan, or you might find that there's a journal that would be really important in your field, and you can talk to your librarians about whether or not you can include that in your content. This site allows you to follow a number of favorites, so you can follow up to 20 for free, which I found was pretty comfortable. I also just tend to go in and browse this site and look and see what's out there and check out particular journals to see what the new content is. So again, this might be something where you set yourself a reminder in your calendar and say, maybe once a month you go in and check out the journals that you're interested in. Sometimes it only takes once a month to browse and see what the new content is. And then what you can do is if you see article titles that are interesting, you can pull them up from the library, or you can actually request them through interlibrary loan and then set those aside to actually read them when you give yourself some time to catch up on your reading. Next is Google Alerts. So sometimes it feels like Google is taking over the world. So I like to use Google for the things that I want. Instead of, again, allowing Google to just infiltrate into everything, I like to actually put it to work for me. So if you haven't done Google Alerts before, you simply go to google.com/alerts, and similar to the library searches, you can set up a search for it to send you information on a topic that you're interested in. So for example, if you wanted to follow the conversation on net neutrality that's going on right now, you could enter a search term of net neutrality. You can set how often you want to receive messages, limit by the kinds of sources that you get it from, and then again, that will send it into your email box. And this is why, again, I encourage you to set up filters so you don't get overrun by this, but you might pick up some information that's really useful. One of the things that people commonly do with Google Alerts is they set up an alert to check for themselves. So if you're an author and you're published and you're looking to see if there's conversation out there about your particular articles or maybe a presentation you did, you can also set up Google Alerts like that. I have Google Alerts set up to look and see what the conversation is out there about my university and my library. So you can search for terms like that and then see what the conversation is out in the Google sphere. Next is a lot of us are using YouTube channels to provide information. For example, the Free Learning Conference, after this is over, all of these presentations that are being recorded are going to be put up onto our professional YouTube channel. So you'd be surprised just how much content you can find that would benefit your professional development that's out on YouTube. But if you don't know where it is, or you don't know how to weed through the masses of what's there, you might miss something that's really great. So again, what I do is I actually subscribe to particular YouTube feeds, whether it's from my professional organizations. For example, the North Carolina Library Association puts videos up when we do webinars. So I follow that, and then I'll get notified anytime there are new videos that come in those. So you might want to actually really consider who you follow and how you want to be notified. You can manage those subscriptions and have them send you an email notification that something new is there, or you can, again, maybe set a time and just check it once a week or once a month to see if there's something new that you want to save. It's pretty easy. If you come across a video that you're interested in, there's always a button that just allows you to subscribe. It's a red button. And you can then subscribe to whoever it is that's putting that content out there and you'll be notified in the future. So that's a great example. Next, I want to get into some tools a little bit more. And there are a number of aggregators that are out there, because one of the challenges is, even from what I've told you so far, is we're getting feeds from so many different directions that, you know, how many different things do we have to look at to keep up with information in our disciplines? So aggregators might be a great idea for you in order to pull information together. So you can pull things like RSS feeds and blogs and news from websites, and you can put it all in one place. So that way you can really focus and have a single place, or at least a lot less places to look to browse what's out there. So here are some of the popular aggregators that are out there right now. I'm going to show you Feedly. Feedly is something that I've been using recently, and I think it's pretty good. I'll show you some of the pros and cons of that. And this is actually from an article recently in June from LifeWire. And from looking at a number of different sites, these really are the most popular aggregators that are out there. So there's NewsBlur, InnoReader is another one that I've played around with a little bit, the Old Reader, G2 Reader, and Feeder. So there's a common sound there. So what I would suggest, if you're interested in any of these tools, is they all have slightly different benefits depending on what it is you prefer to really focus on. So you might want to actually check them out, look them up online and read the descriptions and see what their strengths and weaknesses are and how that matches with what it is you're trying to accomplish. And some of us, and some of you, may be following too much already. So I find that this happens pretty consistently, that once we sign up for something, even if we find we don't read it, we're always deleting that email before we even look at it, because we've learned that it's not content that we're interested in anymore. Take a little bit of time and unsubscribe from that. Get away from having all of that content that you don't want. So again, this takes a little bit of time. You want to make sure, you know, you give yourself a chance to kind of look. I do this in my snail mail too, is when I start getting catalogs from companies and things, I just put them in a pile, and every once in a while I just go through and I go online and I unsubscribe from everything. Typically in the emails and things that we get, there's an unsubscribe that it's pretty easy. But on listservs and things, it can be a little bit more tricky, but it's worth it really to weed out some of the content that you don't want and that you're no longer interested in. So I'm going to do a little bit of show and tell. I'd like to show you Feedly as well. And then I want to make sure to give some time for you to share some of your favorite tools, the things that have worked really well for you, or maybe some of the challenges that you're struggling with, and we can brainstorm that a little bit and maybe come up with some great solutions. And I do want to put a plug in. All the images from my slides here came from pixabay.com, which offers free Creative Commons pictures. It's one of my favorite tools. Okay, just give me 1 minute here. Okay. So here is Feedly. So Feedly allows me to pull in a number of different websites and blogs and things that I want to follow. And then I can come to this one place and see what is recent. So for example, when I open it up, I'm on Today. And hold on 1 second. You're seeing my wallpaper. Okay, hold on 1 second. Thank you. Try this again. Okay, can you see my Feedly page now? Okay, great, thank you. So this is my Feedly page, and typically what I do is it comes up and it has today. So these are new items that have come into a number of things that I subscribe to. So that way I can see what's new and quickly go through and see. So you'll notice I have some journal content, I have some searches that I have set up, and all I have to do is really go through and I can check it off that I've read it. And if it's something that I want to save to read later, I can save it to read later. So you'll notice that what I've done is I've set up some different groups for myself. So for example, as a librarian, I like to follow different departments. So I follow my university's news feed, and I follow the news from some of the departments that I work with on my campus. I follow journal content because there are actual journals that I want to see what articles come out every volume, and that way I can quickly browse. It'll come up very similar to this. If I scroll down a little, it'll come up like this and tell me what the different articles are. And then I can, you'll see I have a little flag, and I can save that to read later, or I can just check it off and I saw it, great. It's not something I want to read, but at least it's allowing me to browse what the content is, and I'm not missing what's coming out. I also have some lit searches set. You can do that again through your library's website, or you can do them through Google searches. One of the limitations that I have with Feedly, and I'm debating right at the moment, is you can actually set it up to do the Google search alerts and have those come through your Feedly, but it's an additional cost. So that is not part of the free package. You'd have to upgrade. And it's really not that expensive, but you'd really want to decide for yourself whether or not that was worth it for you. I also follow some particular websites. There's this website that's a library link of the day, and it'll give me, it kind of aggregates some information about what's going on in librarianship, and will give me some highlights and news feeds from different sources. There's companies like American Libraries Magazine. Again, some of these sites have webinar content, video content, so I like to follow those as well. And if I see something that I want to save, I can save it for later and use that. So this is Feedly as an example, and are other folks using aggregators or using Feedly? Or maybe if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Okay, I'm going to keep going, but if you're typing, feel free to keep typing, and if you have other ideas, we'll keep sharing those as well. But I want to show you a few of the other items that I talked about. Are you able to add commentary to any articles that appear in Feedly? I have not done that, and I don't believe so. What I typically do is if there's something that I want to save, I usually put it into something else. I use Google Docs a lot. So if it's an article that's relating to an area of research that I'm doing, I usually have those all in one place. Unless anyone else has found that, or maybe another tool that allows you to do that, I have not found a way to do that yet. It does allow you, you'll notice down towards the bottom, is you can share some of this content. So that is nice too, is if you come across an article you want to share with your colleagues, you can do that and have it sent to your colleagues, which I think is great, because sometimes that's where we get our information too, is one of us finds a great article and then we share it with our colleagues. So that might be helpful too. Okay, keep any of your questions coming or ideas. But I want to show you something called Informed Librarian. So you may find something like this in your field as well. This is actually a subscription, so it is not free, where they pull in all kinds of content together, and you can look at journal content, you can look at articles that are being published in open access resources, that kind of thing. So this is something maybe you will find in your field. This is a cost type of an item, but it's something that's being provided to try to make life easier and help us keep up with professional development. So you might come across things like that if you talk to colleagues or do some searching on your own. Okay, so here's an example of a library search, and depending on your library, it might look somewhat different. But if you do some sort of a search, I'm working on some searching for information literacy, you can create a search, and you'll notice something like here where it says create an alert. And what you can do is, oops, sorry, I've timed out there. If you set up an alert, it will allow you to have it emailed to you if there is a new item that gets added into the databases after you've done this search. So again, this is looking at all the content that your library has available, and it just gives you some reminders instead of having to remember to go in and do this search again and again. If you're doing a particular research focus, you can have it set up to just send it to you. So I would really encourage you to work with your librarians. Typically in your website you can find who the librarian is for your department. And we really love to work with folks and help you access information. So feel free to talk to librarians about setting up alerts for your library content. Here is Google Alerts. Again, when you log in, it will immediately come up with your name because this is a common search that people want to search to see what's out there about themselves. But you can create a search. So if I did a search, I can type in whatever it is I'm searching for. I can create an alert and show options, and it will tell me or give me some options as to where I want it delivered, how often. So for example, you can do it if you want it immediately, once a day, once a week. And you can choose only the best results. If you want fewer, more relevant results, obviously Google is making that decision for you. So again, it's not overly complicated, but if this is something that you want to do, you can actually set this up pretty quickly in Google. And then once you get this email, one of these emails from a Google alert, again, click on it and set a filter so that it all goes into a folder, making it a little bit easier to browse them when you have time. And here is the journal table of contents. So it doesn't look overly fancy, but it does give you the ability to browse and search through over 31,000 journals. So you can actually do a search. A little slow. So I do have a question while this is loading, is how to do citation chain in Google Scholar Alerts. I have to be honest, I use my library search a lot more than I do Google Scholar. So frequently, if I find content such as articles and things that I find on Google, I typically go and try to find them in my library so that I can pull them up in full text with what we have access to. And then I utilize the citation resources that I have within our databases. Are there things that others do in terms of citation chain that maybe you'd like to share? So feel free to keep adding to the chat. But here's the journal table of contents, and I can actually search for a particular title, or I can search for keywords. Again, if I'm looking for content on a particular topic area that I'm researching, I can search in that way too. And you'll notice you have the option of setting up some alerts again that you can follow up to 20 for free if you want to follow particular journals. And you'll notice that they are grouped by subject as well. So if you are in the field of biology, there are 3,157 that are in that list. And you can actually just focus in and now just browse the journals that are tagged in that subject area. Allows you to focus in just a little bit more. And again, you'll notice that you've got little check boxes so that you can choose the ones that you want to follow if there are specific ones you want to follow. You can also look at publishers, and if you know that there's a particular publisher that is publishing the content that you're interested in, you can follow that by publisher as well. So I've been using this tool quite a bit more lately, and I find that I'm enjoying this and I'm picking up on articles that I might have been missing otherwise, because I tend to get email feeds from journal content, and I have some alerts set up, but there were some journals that I wasn't really following that once I looked at the content that was being published in those, that maybe I should have been. I was missing some content. I was thinking that they weren't really covering the area I was interested in, but if you take a little time to browse it, it might give you some new ideas and allow you to find some new content. So I think that's what I had for show and tell. I'd love to hear your questions, or if any of you have tools that you really like to use, particularly if you've tried any other aggregators. I'd love to hear about it if you want to post it in the chat. Well, I really appreciate everybody joining. I hope you picked up, at least one new idea today. And if you have other ideas or questions, feel free to reach out to me. My information is in the proposal information for the conference, so you can find my contact information on my App State. But reach out. Hopefully you'll share ideas with each other, and hope you have a great rest of the Free Learning Conference today.